Well, first of all, let me ask this. Yesterday we had First Communion, and I just want to know if we have any of those who made their First Communion here with us. Could you please stand? Jacob, right over here. Jacob, what time did you receive communion? Do you remember? 11:16, he told me. That was when he received. This time of year is always such a special time of year. At the Easter Vigil, we had 15 people come into the church. 4 or 5 of them were baptized, and then they all came in to receive communion that night as well. On Wednesday, we'll have 15 of our young people will receive the sacrament of confirmation at the cathedral. And yesterday, we had 47 of our second graders come to receive Christ in the table for the first time. And it was such a joyful experience. I was here on Thursday when they rehearsed with their parents, and it was just them and their parents in here in this church, but the roof, I think, that was bouncing on top from the noise and the excitement. And the same thing Friday morning when we came, or Friday afternoon when they were rehearsing in here as well. And then yesterday when this whole church was full, we had probably a crowd as large, if not larger, than what we had on Easter Sunday. Noise, chairs, not enough chairs, but it was just so exciting. And you could feel that youthful spirit that we prayed about in the opening prayer as Mass began. And then watching them come to receive Christ in the Eucharist, the smile on their face, it's one of the best things about being a priest, is being able to see that directly eye to eye, and to be able to share that gift of Christ with them. The interesting thing about all of their journeys, the first communicants, the RCIA people, those who are receiving confirmation, it reminds us of our own journey of faith, that we've gone through the same steps, experienced the same things. And the road to Emmaus is about coming to Christ and encountering the risen Christ and how we encounter Him in our daily lives. As St. Peter reminds us, the fact that Jesus rises from the dead makes all of this so much more meaningful. It makes our lives more meaningful, more fruitful. And the road to Emmaus is a way in which we encounter Christ. First, we see them questioning, they're doubting, they're disappointed, and they're walking away from Jerusalem. They're walking away from the place where Jesus rose from the dead. In that moment of that doubt, they don't feel Christ's presence. They don't even recognize Him when He comes there. And perhaps we have felt that at some times in our lives where Christ just isn't there, or we don't feel His presence there. Yet the road to Emmaus reminds us that whether or not we feel Jesus is with us, He is always with us, always walking with us in everywhere we go, in each of our paths. And Jesus makes Himself known. He tells them the story of what it is, why He had to suffer, why He had to die, and why He rose from the dead. But it's not until He sits down and has a meal with them and in the breaking of the bread that they truly come to recognize Him. And that's how important this Mass is. Every time we come into this place for Mass, every time we come to receive Christ in this Eucharist, we encounter the risen Lord. We encounter Him just as the 2 disciples did on the road to Emmaus, just as those who were brought into this church at the Easter Vigil made their first communion yesterday and will receive confirmation on Wednesday. We encounter the risen Lord. And every time we encounter the risen Lord, we come to know Him even in a greater way, because Jesus is constantly revealing Himself to us, revealing a little bit more of who He is. And we come to recognize Him and we come to know Him more. The more we come to know Him, the more our minds and hearts become like His. Every time we come into this place, every time we encounter Christ, we are forever changed. We leave this church not being the same because our paths have been made straight. Christ continues to be at work with us in our minds and our hearts. And that's why St. Peter wants us to receive this gift so joyfully. And that's one of the great things about being a part of First Communion yesterday, was being reminded of the joyfulness of simply receiving communion. The joyfulness that we had at our very first communion should be the joyfulness that we experience at every single communion, because it is the gift of Christ coming to us new and once for today. And that is a beautiful and wonderful gift to ever rejoice in. So let us rejoice in the risen Lord, and let us encounter him, asking him to continue to change our minds and our hearts to be like his, so that we may continue to grow in his image and his likeness and share the joy of the resurrection in our lives with the people that we encounter.